Elmhurst College is unique in so many ways.
Here we really do have values, and my professors know the values, and they push me to be those values.
Stewardship and faith and community and service, and it really does bring in kind of a level of just interaction with values that you never got before.
But as you kind of develop yourself over the years, you start to realize these values mean so much more, and you start to uncover the true meaning behind them.
You begin to see equivalencies between your life and the school, and then you discover that you're not just in a place of learning, you're also in a place of growing, you're in a place of maturity and value, exactly that, core values.
Intellectual excellence means allowing our minds to grow in ways that we've never thought they could before. It means exploring those new pathways, seeing how we could do things different. It means stepping outside of our box of what we know and what we're comfortable with and taking those risks to really grow and make things better. I think that's really the core of what intellectual excellence is.
The professors set the standard of intellectual excellence, and that rubs off on the students, and I feel like that's rubbed off on me.
You really have to push yourself. So to know that's actually a value here is pretty important, because that's something I value on my own. So if my college values it as well, that means I really belong here.
To say that Elmhurst College values community, I think, is an understatement. I think Elmhurst College is community in so many ways.
Coming to Elmhurst College, a small college, it has to be about community.
It doesn't really matter who you are or where you've come from. Everyone here will just love you for who you are.
The fact that every individual and every unique person is allowed to be in an environment together and learn from each other and grow with each other.
Just the fact that it's smaller and that you form those one-on-one relationships, it encourages like creativity and questioning and all the things I wanted out of my college experience.
Social responsibility means caring for each individual as a person.
There are all these people, and they're all more important than my general happiness as a single person.
You're not only trying to better yourself, but I feel like it also means it's your job that you better your community too.
Knowing that there's something larger than yourself and that you can play a part in making someone else's life better.
Taking what I learned from my family, that others come before me, and translating that into the entire world.
It's really awesome to be in a place where not only are you worrying about academics, but it's also teaching me how to be a better person.
To me, stewardship is just being responsible, really thinking about your actions.
If I'm going to say that, I believe in this philanthropy, I think we should do this, I need to follow through with my actions.
What I found coming to Elmhurst is that there are lots of people that feel the same way. So it was easy to find a group of people who were so engaged in service and so willing to help.
Kind of made me reflect on, what do I value in life? Why am I here? They really did kind of push me to the next level and make me think about that, and I think that I'm a better person for it.
Values really help shape identity. If you really don't understand your values, you're not really understanding a part of who you are.
I was more sheltered until I came here, and Elmhurst has really kind of made me step out of my comfort zone and learn more about what I want to do and what I believe in.
Places like the chaplain's office and the Niebuhr Center for Faith and Action give me safe places where I can go to discuss my faith and to discuss my values with people that I know I trust and people that I know I can count on to influence me and to lead me in the right direction.
You can never be forced out of your faith or forced into a different kind of faith as long as you're at Elmhurst, that you really are given the ability to take your pick and always have encouragement from your peers, never shunned or excluded or pressured into something else. There's always a place for you.
If you believe you're here on this earth for a reason, that's going to affect the way you live your life. That's going to affect the way you treat your academics, the way you treat your social life, the way you look at your future and the goals that you have. Those things seem like really big things, but all of that boils down to the way you live your everyday life.
We value
intellectual excellence,
community,
social responsibility,
stewardship,
faith, meaning, and values.
Welcome to This Evening with Dick Portillo, part of the Roland Quest lecture series at Elmhurst College. This lecture will be videotaped and will air soon on the local cable television program, Elmhurst, Our Kind of Town. You'll also be able to see it on the college's website, www.elmhurst.edu. At this time, I'd like to ask that you please make sure your cell phones are turned off. And now I'm pleased to introduce the interim president of Elmhurst College, Dr. Larry Braskamp. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to this Elmhurst College event, and thank you for coming out in this wintry night. I want to acknowledge several people before I introduce Lee Daniels. First of all, we have Steve Morley, the mayor of Elmhurst here. Steve, you want to stand up? We have several members of the Board of Trustees with us. Would you like to stand up? Thank you. Okay, yeah, thank you. We have many Elmhurst College alumni. Why don't you wave your hand? Okay, great. And we have some students here. Will the students want to wave their hand as well? Okay, good. That's great. And for the rest of you, you can also wave your hand. All right. Thank you. Tonight's event is part of the Roland Quest lecture series at Elmhurst College. The Quest series was established here in 1996 and quickly became an enormously popular series. It honors Elmhurst College alumnus Roland Quest, the class of 1996. Mr. Quest, who passed away in 1993, the class of 36, who passed away in 1993, was a McDonnell Douglas engineer who performed design work on the original space shuttle. He also was a boat designer and owner of the Quest Marine Corporation. The Quest Lecture Series brings new ideas and outstanding speakers to the Elmhurst campus and contributions to the intellectual vitality of both the college and the community. Tonight's event features our guest in conversation with Lee Daniels, my senior advisor and a distinguished fellow in the college's political science department. Lee has been a longtime friend of Elmhurst College. He has helped us to advance our mission and realize our goals through his collaboration with the community groups and state and federal offices. A lifetime resident of Elmhurst, he has served on the Illinois General Assembly as a state representative and as a Speaker of the House from 1995 to 1997. Lee has served on the boards of several prominent organizations and currently is chairman of the board of the Haymarket Center, a drug and rehab alcohol treatment center in Chicago. He is a very good friend, and let us welcome Lee at this time.
Thank you all, and thank you very much for coming out, particularly on this cold night. And it's really my pleasure to welcome you all, along with Dr. Braskamp, and to have an enjoyable session tonight and to enjoy our times together. But before I introduce our guest lecturer, I want to recognize Sharon Portillo and the Portillo family. Could you please stand up just so we can recognize you, Sharon? Portillo family. Many of them were a lot smaller last time I saw them, Sharon. The importance of that is Sharon has been a partner to Dick for all these many years as an important component of the empire, and yes, I'll call it the empire that they have built together. And Sharon, it's just a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for coming out today. It's now my pleasure to introduce our guest lecturer, Dick Portillo. Dick has been, in full disclosure, I was Dick's first lawyer, which makes me wonder about my decisions, why I didn't stay as his lawyer. Anyhow, for many, many years, back in 1967 when I became his lawyer, we've been friends ever since then and stayed close in many number of things, talking back and forth. And of course, I watched his growth over the years, from the hot dog stand, which you'll hear more about shortly, to building the first, second, third expansion and onwards to his present locations throughout the country today as they continue the growth of Portillo's hot dogs. You all know, of course, that he recently sold his business to Berkshire Partners out of Boston. No relationship to Warren Buffett or anything like that. It didn't matter. They still bought the property. For a lot of money, by the way, I might say. But anyhow, Dick and Sharon sold their company for the largest single amount of a restaurant its size in the history of the United States of America. Now that's quite an accomplishment when you think about it. Furthermore, the importance and part of that is that it really started right here in Villa Park. And yes, Elmhurst is a big part of that as well. And there's a close connection all through his life and his working life, and Sharon and Dick and the Portillo family, to this location, because this is where it all started. I can't tell you how proud I am to be called his friend and to have him call my friend. And really, it's indeed a pleasure to bring him out now, Dick Portillo, the Quest Lecturer for 2015. Please welcome Mr. Dick Portillo. Last time I saw you, Dick, you didn't have a beard.
It covers up the wrinkles. Oh, that's pretty loud.
Yeah. It's live. We're really live now, right? That's really good.
Testing, testing, testing.
There you go. We're on.
Okay.
Anyhow, we have a short video to show to you, kind of to give you a little bit of the background of the Portillo family and the growth experience that they went through, is kind of setting the stage for our conversation tonight. It's going to be an interactive conversation. I'm told this microphone's not on. So he's busily working over there. And it'll be an interactive conversation that we have. And at the end of the conversation, we'll have a question and answer period in which you can come and ask some questions of Mr. Portillo. So with that, we start our video and have some fun and watch that out. Dick, here we go. Whenever that's good. Ready?
Dick Portillo was born at 1330 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. He was third and last child of Frank and Bee Portillo. His family then moved to government-subsidized row houses on Mohawk Street called the Mother Frances Cabrini Housing Project. After his father started earning enough money, they were prompted to leave and moved to 1617 South Central Park. His family later moved to the southwest suburbs. He was a 1957 graduate of Argo Community High School at 63rd in Harlem. After high school, he served a tour with the Marine Corps. The Marines taught him mental toughness, discipline, and the value of training and organization, and gave him confidence. All of those qualities have proven essential in his journey through life. When he returned from his tour of duty with the Marines, he married his high school sweetheart Sharon. He worked the same day he got married and held 14 different jobs in the first 18 months they were married. Some of those jobs were unloading boxcars, working as a fireman for the railroad, working in a steel forging plant, digging ditches, working in a junkyard, and working construction. All of them were back-breaking, and he knew he couldn't do that the rest of his life. He and his wife had saved $1,100 for their first house, and he used that money to open the first hot dog stand known as the Dog House, which opened in 1963 on North Avenue in Villa Park. The Dog House was a 6-foot by 12-foot trailer without a bathroom or running water. To get the water he needed, he ran 250 feet of garden hose from a nearby building into the trailer. By 1967, the Dog House was a success and was ready for a new look. After it was remodeled, it was renamed Portillo's, and over the years has grown into a successful multi-state operation. Portillo's expanded to Southern California in 2005, Indiana in 2006, and Arizona in 2013. In August of 2014, the company was sold to Berkshire Partners, a private equity firm. Dick continues to be very much involved in the business as he helps guide their planned growth into Wisconsin, Florida, and a multitude of other states over the next several years. A recipient of numerous awards, he continues to actively pursue real estate and other investments and grow his family office. Dick's love of history, most notably the Pacific battles of World War II, has prompted his several trips to important battle sites, including Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands, Peleliu, Bougainville, and New Guinea. He actively supports the Wounded Warrior Battalion at Camp Pendleton, where he was once stationed. In addition, the Chicago Diabetes Project is a program he supports because of his wife's struggle with diabetes. Along with his advisory duties with Portillo's, Dick continues to travel and enjoy his Florida home and yacht. Dick and Sharon just celebrated 56th wedding anniversary. They live in Oak Brook and enjoy spending time with their family, friends, traveling, and enjoying life.
We're really hoping that this mic works. Are we working now?
Testing.
Testing, he says. You're working.
Yeah, am I too loud? My wife said that a lot.
I don't know, I think you have all the sound. Can you hear anything back there? We're trying. Well, the audio people are in charge of this. I'm not. I'm just in charge of the conversation, so can...
Audio, we need you up here.
How are we doing, buddy? Is this one of the moments you live for? So we're going to do this again? Here we go. Anyhow, Dick, I watched this video with interest because it tells so much about your life and your growth. And I know, and of course, people here are learning now for the first time, the background that you have. Isn't this fun? Just imagine if we were on CBS Live, TV, my best friend. Anyhow, Dick, back to you. You grew up in Southside Chicago.
Well, it would be like the West Side. I mean, I was born on Van Buren and Racine, and then we moved to the Mother Francis Cabrini housing project. It later turned into Cabrini Green. I want to make something straight here. It was not Cabrini Green that I lived in. It was a Mother Francis Cabrini housing project, which ended up being part of Cabrini Green. But when I was there, it was just called the Mother Francis Cabrini housing project. There you
Testing,
go. Testing.
You're back. Oh, look. Hallelujah, everybody. We got sound, Dick.
Francis Cabrini was an Italian saint, and then they named the projects after her.
Well, your mom, Frank, and B, you had two other siblings?
My sister died. I have a brother, Frank. My sister died about 20 years ago from breast cancer. It was Carmen.
And of course, Frank is now living in Florida, I believe.
Frank's
is that right?
Yeah, he's retired.
And he also had an interesting business.
Yeah, he was the president of Brown's Chicken. Him and some of his partners. He had several partners, and they had some problems down the line, but he's retired now.
And you know, one of the things I was interested in just kind of listening to you describe your early childhood. So you lived in the Francis Cabrini row houses. Can they call them row houses?
Right, right.
Kind of tell me what it was like in that area as you were growing up.
It was, you know, people said, "Oh, you poor guy who was so poor." Well, you didn't know the difference. Everyone around us was poor. I mean, everyone had the same thing, which is nothing. You know, what I will say, my memories of that, I was quite young, but my memories of that were, first of all, families were closer. We had a lot of families there, and there was no air conditioning, so in the summertime, everyone would get out in the street, sidewalks, and bring food and talk, and that was nice, that was comfortable. But they were all poor. One of the things that stuck out in my mind, more so than anything, and I hope my mother forgives me for this, right around the corner from the projects was a place called Montgomery Ward's, Monkey Ward's. That was the Montgomery Ward's, Sears, and Marshall Fields were the three biggest retail places at that time, probably in the country. My mother stole the pair of shoes for either my brother or I. The whole neighborhood found out about it. And that was a very sad memory of that. But most of the arguments that I heard my parents talking about were about money problems. And I remember Dad was yelling at her for doing that. And she said, well, if you made enough money, I wouldn't have to do that. But I ask every mother in here, what mother wouldn't do that for her child? If that was true. So I want everybody to know my mother was a great woman. But she was a mother, and her son needed shoes. You know my mom. She was like Mother Teresa.
Yeah, I know. That's right.
So there was good memories and bad memories.
Strong parents, though. They were strong people.
Well, they were both immigrants. My mother was born in Greece, and so she's 100% Greek. Greek. My father was born in Mexico, and he is Spanish, French, and Mexican Indian. And so that's quite a combination.
One of the things,
neither one of them graduated grammar school.
Tell me if you can, how that experience, your early experience, now you brought up the fact that your mother had provided for the family and actually stole a pair of shoes. How did that impact your growth pattern as you grew up?
Well, being poor, I mean, it just, that, I didn't want to be poor, you know, and that was something that stuck in my mind for a long time, although after that instance, it was never brought up in the family again, you know, because we all knew and loved my mother, and knowing that the situation was, any mother would have done that, you know, but it made me think about what was I going to do? You know, I mean, was I going to stay in the projects? Was I going to stay in 6th, 8th, and Central Park? What could I do? You know, and I have a learning disability too. A lot of people don't know that too, but which made school for me exceptionally difficult.
High school? Was high school hard?
And grammar school and high school. School in general. Anybody with any kind of a learning disability has a problem. But I will tell you this, and I'm not ashamed of that. Actually, I think it was an advantage in certain things. Richard Branson, we all know who he is, Virgin Airlines. Then there's another fellow, David Middleman, JetBlue. Paul something or other, the entrepreneur that started Kinko's. The founder of IKEA. His name is Ingor Kampo something. Here's those initials. IKEA were his initials. His name, his first and middle name. Tommy Hilfiger, Steve Jobs, Ted Turner, and Henry Ford all had learning disabilities. CEOs, there's a lot of CEOs of some very successful companies. So if there's any students out there, I want them to know that just because you have a learning disability or just because studying and retaining things that you read is difficult, it's not impossible. I had to read something 2 or 3 times over and over again. But it did give me, I looked at things differently than most people. CEOs they're a real rare breed. We all thrive on risk, where most people would just be satisfied with the status quo. Now I look at my problem as not bad, but I look at it as a good thing that happened in my life, because the way I thought, I would always look at the big picture and not the little things. And most people, the ones that I mentioned, all had the same type of a problem. They had a learning disability, but they thought differently. They looked at the big picture. They didn't look at all the little things that would affect that big picture. And they all turned out pretty well.
In spite of this, what kind of student were you? Were you an average student, or were you exceptional?
No, I was a pretty bad student. I was average or below. You know, things came.
But in high school, you also participated in sports.
Yeah, I played football.
You played football. And it seems to me that in high school, a very important thing happened. You met the love of your life.
Yeah, she was my high school sweetheart.
And here she is today, Sharon. Yeah. All these years, Sharon, thank you very much. I'm sure there's been some tough times economically, but when you got married, it was after you had left high school and after you served a tour of duty in the Marines.
Right.
Now tell me, so did you enlist in the Marines right after high school?
Yes, I did. At that time.
Why did you do that?
Well, at that time, you had a military obligation, and I didn't want to go in the Army. I didn't want to go to the Navy. I didn't want to go to the Air Force. I didn't want to go in the service, but I knew I was going to. I knew I was going to have to. And the Marine Corps had a short enlistment because they were short of men, and for a very short period of time. And it just so happened to be that particular time was when I graduated high school. I enlisted with my best friend John Zeta.
And you went through the Marine Corps training, but I also remember an incident that you were telling me about that was very important in shaping your life and the direction of your life in the Marines. Thanksgiving 1957.
Colonel
you were
Browse.
in the barracks.
Yeah, I was in my barracks. First time I was ever away from home in the holidays, and I was a lonely 17-year-old Marine, and everybody in the 1st Marine Division when I was in, they had a tendency to, the NCOs and the officers would ask the private first classes to go to their houses for dinner around Christmas time and Easter, knowing that we're all lonely kids. Nobody had asked me. I was the only one in the whole company that didn't go out. Nobody asked. So I'm laying there, my first time away from home on Thanksgiving, laying there in my underwear waiting for the mess hall to open up because I knew that they were going to have turkey. And I'm thinking, why am I the only guy? I must really be a screw-up, you know? And I was. But the door flew open, and a young lieutenant walked in. His name was B.B. Browse, Barney Browse. He said, "Get dressed, Portillo, you're coming over to my house for dinner." Holy cow. Officer got dressed, went over there. He had just been married 5 months. Him and his wife, Georgine, it was their first Thanksgiving together, and they're married. Her first Thanksgiving dinner. They treated me like I was some kind of rock star. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I watched Colonel, he ended up 2 tours in Nam, and ended up a full bird colonel. He spent 30-something years in the Marine Corps, decorated, highly decorated, and all that. He was one of the finest leaders in the Marine Corps, and I watched him. He was sort of a mentor for me as far as how to treat people. He was a tough son of a gun, don't get me wrong, but he trained you and he was patient with you, and he treated you with respect. And I learned a lot from that man, and I took him to several trips to the Solomon Islands and everything, and I'm still in contact with him. And I sent him a card every Thanksgiving.
But he had, and the Marines had a profound influence on you and shaped the rest of your life.
The Marine Corps taught me the value of training, the value of organization. And I would think, I was watching, like when I got off the bus and we went into the boot camp, here was 75 guys that were in our platoon from different states. Nobody knew anybody. Some of them were misfits, some of them were, just a bunch of guys that were going nowhere in life. And in 3 months, Lee, they were working as a team, working as one. I mean, when we were marching at the very beginning, we were tripping over our feet and that, but as it gradually, through training and organization, we turned out pretty doggone good. And I learned that training and organization was so valuable, and I used that in my business career. So that's where I got my education from on business with the Marine Corps. Because Portillo's is probably one of the most labor intense. I mean, it's high labor. We got a lot of people. There's 60, 70 people sometimes behind our counter. Whereas if you go to Taco Bell or McDonald's, are they still open? Are they still around?
Yeah, they're still around.
Okay.
But they don't gross as much as you do.
No, not even.
Which we'll talk about a little bit.
Not even close. So we have a very extensive menu. There's 30 items on a Portillo's menu, not including the drinks. There's 57 items on a Barnelli's menu. It's 2 restaurants under one roof.
And I think for purposes of our discussion tonight, this training was very critical to you in your future years.
I look at it now, and I would absolutely, I'm sure of it.
So first, it's important that we all thank you for your service, in all sincerity. Also, we have a bunch of military people here that are part of our class at Elmhurst College, who you met earlier. I wonder if they could stand up. Those of you that Marines and Navy that were here earlier, there we are over here. Thank you.
I had a nice conversation with them, fine young men. Fine.
I noticed when I was watching you earlier, and I noticed when you were introduced that your eyes lit up and you saluted them. So thank you all for your service as well. So from the Marines, something else happened important right after you left the Marines. You
married my high school
sweetheart. And here she is today after all these years, well over 50 years. I'm sorry to say that in terms of length, but I'm proud to say that actually. And you had 3 kids, Michael, Joe, and Tony.
Correct.
But after the Marines and after the marriage, you were struggling with what to do with the rest of your life. So what did you try? You tried a series of jobs, didn't you? Now this is important for everyone to hear.
Like the video said, I had 14 jobs the first 18 months. It might have been 18 to 20 months, but some of them were part-time, some were full-time, but I always worked. And I mean, I unloaded boxcars, unloaded trucks. Most of it was physical stuff. And I wasn't trained for anything. The Marine Corps, part of the Marines that I was in, I couldn't use any of those things on the outside. So
14 jobs in the first 18 months.
Some of them were back-breaking jobs, too. I remember one time I was working in a forging plant, and the forging is where the big hammers come down and the sparks go flying all over. And Sharon and I went to pick up a paycheck or something. They had rolled the sides of the walls up because it was so hot, and because they're big ovens in the summertime. And I went in to get the paycheck, and I came back out, and Sharon was crying. And I said, "What are you crying for?" She says, "This is what you do to support your family." I said, "Yeah."
Back-breaking work.
Oh, man, you got no idea.
So that kind of led you to the conclusion that you didn't want to do this the rest of your life. And then what did you do? In 1963,
Well, we were saving for a house. And all my wife wanted out of life was, she said, all I want is a house with a white picket fence around it. So we had saved $1,100. And that wasn't enough for a down payment, but I had the opportunity to build this hot dog stand, which her father and I built. And I came home and I says, "Honey, how important is that house with the white picket fence?"
God love you, Sharon.
She says, really important. Why? I said, because I want to build a hot dog stand and sell hot dogs. I want to take the $1,100. I won't tell you what she said. So she went crying to her mom. And she says, "You know what my husband wants to do? He wants to take our money for our house and build a hot dog stand." Can you imagine that, Mom? And her mother, thank you, Josephine. Her mother says, "Sit down." She says, "At least he wants to do something. Where's he going? All he's doing is back-breaking work and all that. You back him up. You stick with him and back him up." She never complained once after that. About that, anyway. I mean, she's not.
Of course, you never gave her any reason to complain.
No, of course not.
And she's been a partner ever since then.
Yeah, I mean, we had 2 kids to raise, so, she would come in and before we hired any help, it'd be her and I, and then we had 2 children at that time, and I had an old beat-up Ford station wagon, and I pulled it up in the back of the trailer, and before I had any employees, and we put some toys in the back seat, and Mike and Joe were young then, and put some toys and rolled down the window and had a screen door in the back, and Sharon and I would make hot dogs for lunch, and then there wasn't much of a lunch at the beginning, and then after lunch she'd take the kids home and I'd stay in the trailer by myself. But she never complained. She backed me up. Anytime I had a crazy idea about expanding, about taking the money, and we started making money. Our business was terrible the first year, Lee. I mean, really, really bad. And it was one of the young men, Sam, asked me, was I ever afraid in business? Was I ever worried about failure? And I said, darn right. I was scared stiff. I mean, it was keep me up at night. But fear can work in two different ways sometimes. You can be so fearful of something that you drop your idea because you're afraid, or you can be so fearful that it creates the creative juices and how to overcome that fear and change things. And fortunately, that's the direction that I.
Behind you, we have a picture of the doghouse. The very start of everything, called the doghouse. You had to run a hose across a shopping center.
You see the box that's on the right-hand side? There was a reel in that box. There's 5 50-foot garden hoses in there, and I strung them across the parking lot. And there was an old National Tea food store, and it's no longer there. And attach them to the silcock, turn on the water, run back, stick the hose through the window, fill up the steam table. And I knew just about when it was going to get filled up. I'd run back, disconnect it, and roll it back up. And kids would come in, and it was a big joke for some of these kids that had cars. They stood and they'd, try to burn the rubber over the hose, and all that. And I'd swear at them and all that. And in the wintertime, when the silcock was frozen, there's a can there. Sharon's father used to be a milkman, and he had a milk can there that he gave me, and it was 10 gallons. And Sharon and I lived at an apartment in back of the shopping center. And in back of the shop,
Villa Park on North Avenue.
Villa Park on North Avenue. Yeah, I've got pictures. I drive by there occasionally just to look at it. And in the basement of that apartment was the washer and dryer, where you wash stuff. And I cut off a little hose and I filled up the water, because the silcock was frozen in the wintertime. You couldn't use the hose. And I'd haul it up, put it in the back of the old station wagon, and fill up the steam tables that way. And then the shopping cart that you see there, we'd put the pots and pans in there, and I'd wheel them across the parking lot, and Sharon knew approximately what time I was coming home, and she'd have soap and water in the bathtub, and we'd wash the pots and pans in the bathtub.
Every night?
Well, sometimes, not every night, because sometimes I could use a business in there if they weren't busy, but a lot of times. And one time in particularly, we're on our hands and knees, and she's asking me, we're washing the pots with the little scrubbies, and we let the water out, and there was a mustard ring in the bathtub. And, and I felt pretty bad, as we're washing. I'm thinking, did I put my family in harm's way? I mean, this is bad. I'm washing pots and pans in a bathtub. I mean, I built a business with no running water or bathroom. How stupid can I be,
Well, I got word for you. Not too stupid.
Yeah, it worked out well.
Pretty good. But you really struggled the first few years, didn't you?
It's terrible. People, everybody looks at a successful business and they only look at the good part. They say he was lucky or she was lucky. Or they don't look at the work or the sacrifices that went through that. It's almost never true that somebody, that it was easy or that they didn't sacrifice anything. There was a lot of sacrifices there. Every time we made a dollar, I didn't want to put it, we didn't buy a new car, new clothes or anything like that. We put it back in the business. And in 1976 or 67, we built the second trailer.
And renamed it.
Well, I had to rename it because the first time I got a letter from an attorney, a threatening letter from an attorney, there was a company out of Youngstown, Ohio that had the name The Doghouse, and they sent me a letter saying that I had 30 days to change the name, otherwise they're going to take me to court. And boy, I was scared stiff, and out there, I don't want to go to court. And the first time a lawyer ever sent me a letter like that. And so one night I was just thinking of different names. I got done working 12 or 13 hours. I couldn't sleep, so I'm writing on a piece of paper these different names. And we had a little dog named Pokey. He was a dachshund. And we don't have an example of it here, but on the cups that you see, the bags that you see at Portillo's, you'll see a dachshund with his tail wagging, one ear up, one ear down, and his tongue hanging out. I looked down at Pokey. I felt lonely and scared, and I looked down at Pokey, and he's like that. That's it. That's my new logo. We put Portillo's on top, but that's how that happened.
It's an interesting story. It's interesting how that evolved. So from there, your first hot dog stand, Dog House, and then Portillo's, Villa Park and North Avenue. You then decided to expand to another store. What drove you to that decision, or were you feeling that you could make more money on it, or what was the basis behind that decision?
Greed. No, I thought I could make money. I thought each year after the first year or second year, Lee, I was getting more confidence in myself, because when I went in this, my wife tells the story better than I do, but I didn't even know how to steam a hot dog bun. And the first couple of days we were open, and Sharon was there, and I cut a pan and drilled holes in it, and I figured the steam would come up. I'd lay the buns in there and then steam a hot dog bun. Well, all it did was it toasted. I mean, not toasted them. They got hard as a rock, and we didn't know how to control the temperature in the water or anything like that. And the food was terrible the first few days. And my wife says, "Dick, this is embarrassing. We got to close. This is embarrassing." I say, I think I did it backwards. I should have found out about how to steam a hot dog, how to make a hot dog. And people say, what is there to making a hot dog? All you do is put a little mustard on it, wrap it up, and sell it. Well, yeah, if you're making one or two, but when you're feeding hundreds of people, it gets a little bit more involved in that. I said, Sharon, can you watch the hot dog stand here? I'm going to go to a hot dog stand that we always used to go to. I'm going to pay more attention to where they buy their supplies from, because at that time I was buying my supplies from the National Food Store, where I put if they had a sale on relish, I'd buy that. If they had a sale on mustard or whatever, I'd buy that. There was no order in the bunch. So I went to this place, and Mike was 2.5. His brother Joe was 6 months old. Tony wasn't born yet. And so I took the kids there in the stroller. Joe was in the stroller, and Mike, I told the 2.5-year-old Michael, I says, watch your brother. So went into this hot dog stand, and I remember seeing it, and it had no admittance, employees only, but I knew that that's where they kept their supplies, and I would get valuable information. That's where their storeroom was. So I walked in there, and getting information written down. I remember Lakeside Relish for some reason, certain things, and these different ingredients. And the guy comes back, and he says, what are you doing here? I said, I'm looking for a bathroom. He says, there's no bathroom, get out of here. I'm like, okay. Then I made like I was going, I knew the door was over here, but I went this way. He says, no, not that way, but I gathered more information. A little aggressive. And now I'm educated. I should have done this before. And then I would go and lean over the counter and watch how we're steaming their buns. What kind of a thing. Now, I mean, it might sound simple, but when you got a high volume, steaming the bun is very important. So then I came back and I got more, I felt good about it, but I did it ass backwards.
But you made it work.
Yes, sir.
And with the first store, Villa Park and North Avenue, and you opened the second store, which was in
Glendale Heights.
Glendale Heights.
Yeah.
And then the third store
was Villa Park on St. Charles Road. It was an old, you handled that deal. It was an old Franksville. Right. It's still there, but not as a Franksville. It's a double.
It's an omelet shop now.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And well, first of all, they scared the daylights out of me, because they opened up, and I saw the advertisement. It was a cute building. They had a lot of money behind them. I didn't have a lot of money. There was some company that owned them. They were going to open up hundreds all over the country. And I went there the first week they were open, and I looked in and I said, oh, what a cute building. They got running water, they got a bathroom, they got a cute building, and they got money behind them. I have none of those things. And I went in there, ordered, and there was kids running it, And it was a hot day. There was a businessman, had his jacket off, tie undone, it was warm, even though it was air conditioned. Came in, and there was kids running it. There was 2 kids behind there making the food, and one guy out there, and kids were goofing off. And the man says, where's my chili dog? I've been waiting for my chili dog. And the kid said, supposed to be the manager, said, the man wants his chili dog. He wants his chili dog? The kid threw the chili dog at it, missed him, and hit the guy with the shirt. And I thought, this is good. This is good stuff, So years later, Lee, and I know you probably remember this, Well, they went out of business. I think you were with me when I went to the company to take over their lease. And this guy was sitting behind this big desk, beautiful office. I got a better one now, but it was, it's a beautiful office, and he's got all these guys in suits around him. And he reminded me of old Mr. Mayor Daley. And he says, kid, he says, tell me something. How come you're taking over this store? We got all this money behind us. I understand you got a trailer and it doesn't even have running water or something like that. I said, yes, sir. He said, well, how come you can do that? We got all this money. I got all this money behind us, all these great ideas. How come? Can you tell me that? I said, yeah, you got too many guys like this around you. They're all suits. None of them knew anything about.
And that's something a little bit I want to explore in depth, your management theories, your operations, training, and things like that. But I also want to cover something about, as I recall, your first drive-through was in 1983?
83, yeah.
And there was a reason for that. Can you explain that?
Yeah. We were building it's in Downers Grove on Finley Road. And not the one that's there now. There was a building next to it. There was a building, we're building another one. And I was sitting on the curb with the architect and the builder. I saw a woman walking across the parking lot. She's got 2 children, a bag full of groceries or something. Stress all over her face. She had 2 children. One's running north, one's running south. And she's, come here, she called and told me, kids, come back. And I says, to the builder and the architect, I says, look at that woman over there. Yeah, those kids are driving her nuts, aren't they? Yeah. I says, do you think that if she's on the other side of that shopping center and she wants to come in and buy a sandwich from us, that she's going to go through all this stuff, get out of the car, get in the car, get out of the car with those kids? Where are you going with this, Mr. P? I said, we need a drive-through. We need a drive-through really bad. He said, Mr. Pete, it's 2/3 done. I said, that's why we got to get working on it right now. And that was the first drive-through.
Where was your first drive-through?
Downers Grove.
Downers Grove. First one, 1983. Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing about that, as I recall, is that flash forward, McDonald's actually talked about your whole concept of drive-through.
Well, the drive-through, because I had a passion for the business and just a real desire to please the customer. We got the drive-through, and I did that wrong too, because I tried to work off the front line and all that, and it didn't work, and it was slow. And then so I called up the architect and the builder. I said, I got to put an addition on this drive-through. Mr. P only had it 2 weeks. I said, I know, that's why we got to get started on it right away. So everything in excess, Lee, that's been like that all my life. So then we got the bigger drive-through, and we were able to produce the food faster and give the customer better service. Michael and another was my supervisor, and then I had another supervisor at that time, and I says, we weren't, and drive-through was picking up. It was doing good and helped business. And I said, Mike, did you ever see these guys with the changers on the hip that sell newspapers? And yeah. I said, what if we put somebody out in the parking lot? And I sent one of you guys out to Radio Shack to get some walkie-talkies. And we'll put an order taker out there, and he goes with the walkie-talkie, and he talks to somebody in here, place the order, goes back and forth. I think it'll work. Well, it's a lot more sophisticated now, for those of you that know the Portillo's drive-through. And Mike told me years later, he thought it was one of the craziest ideas I ever had. But it worked out pretty well, because right now Portillo's does about 60% of its business through the drive-through. And sometimes we'll have 8, 9, 10 people out in the drive-through taking the money. And sometimes as far away, excuse me, depending on what store it is, about the length, 3/4 of the length of a football field away from the window. And we run the bags out to the customers too. We very, very seldom use the box that McDougal's or Wendy's or whatever those other guys are. the box that they use to call in and say, hi, welcome to McDougal's, can I help you? We very seldom use that. We put the people outside.
Didn't McDonald's, McDougal's as you call it, didn't they want to copy your system?
Well, they did. The system, after we really, I mean, it's pretty sophisticated now, and it works. It works really well most of the time. Well, we knew that people were out talking to our people that we had out taking orders and giving the food. And I knew that they were McDonald's people because they all dressed like FBI guys, you know. And so I would ask one of the girls, what's that? Well, they're asking how this works and that works, so everyone would give them different information, you know. Yeah, but in order for that system to work, you need to have a high volume, and we have a lot higher volume than a McDonald's does.
And that's one of the things I want to explore in a little while. But can you tell me about your typical employee? I mean, all of us have been to a Portillo's, right? Right. We've all been through the drive-through. We've all seen how it works.
I think there was 3 or 4 back there that said no. And I want to know.
Well, they will after this. They'll be out there. But I want to tell me about your typical employee. You know, what that person is like and what training you put them through, because you have a pretty extensive training program, don't you?
The whole thing's about training, Lee. We have the most complicated brand, the most complicated system in the United States. I mean, if you look at some of the newcomers, meatheads, or not Jack in the Box, the meatheads, or what's the one that we went to, Sharon, the other day? We waited 15 minutes and there was only 2 people in there. 5 guys. Five guys. Very simple.
You waited 15 minutes?
15 minutes. And there was only 2 people ahead of us. They only got hamburgers on the menu. You know? But that's why their annual sales are only $1.1 million a year. Most people that go into business try to simplify it, to make it easy. What I tried to do, my philosophy and my theory was, excuse me, look at it this way. I felt I should build a moat around my business. What do I mean, moat? You know, in the medieval times, the castle, they had a moat so the enemy couldn't get to the castle, right? Well, in this particular case, the castle is Portillo's. The moat is our complicated system, and the enemy trying to get to the moat is the competitor. So I purposely tried to create something that was very difficult to copy, because we all know, anybody in business knows, or anybody that's a student of business knows, that when somebody gets a good idea on something, a lot of people jump on it. Then all of a sudden that good idea is no longer unique. Portillo's has been around for a long time. We're very, very unique. People have tried to copy Portillo's. Why hasn't it succeeded? Because of the moat. What is that moat? What am I talking about? It's the culture and the training that we put into Portillo's. We do very, very little advertising. Actually, the company that bought me has done more advertisement in the last year than I did in the last 30 years. I don't know why, but
your typical employee, though, you put through extensive training. I think that's also important in your success. You told me you had a system called QSAC.
Quality, service, attitude, and cleanliness.
And that's a major component about your training process.
Well, that's part of the culture of Portillo's. I'll get into that, but the way I look at it and the way the training department looks at it is you get the best people you can get your hands on, which is a tough market today because everyone's looking for that same market in an easier business. You train them the best of their ability and your ability to train them. You give them a complete job description. They have to know what their responsibilities are and then follow up. If you use those 4 basic things in my business, it works more than it doesn't, you know, but you have to get the best people. Remember what I said earlier in the conversation, Lee, when I said when I got off the bus at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, boot camp, there's 75 guys that came from all different parts of the country. Nobody had ever worked together. But in a short period of time, with a tremendous amount of training, they all worked together, marched together, and moved as one. And that's the same thing with Portillo's. What is the average Portillo's employee like? Well-trained.
And great retention.
We have up until, well, I don't know what it is now, but last year we had the lowest, when I was in charge, we had the lowest turnover, a fraction of the turnover in the restaurant industry in the United States, a fraction of it, in the toughest business, because it's hard work. Anybody that's been to Portillo's knows that, you know, you're not just taking one burger, flipping it on, or you're not, I mean, when we opened up Scottsdale, Arizona, we had 500 people in line. We were ringing up an order about every 6 seconds, and they were still waiting 2 hours.
That's in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that struck me about when you expanded into Arizona was when you were at the Scottsdale store, you actually worked the stores.
I worked the stores until a year ago.
And you go there when they open up and you work the lines and you make sure everything's going right.
I would bring an extra shirt. I would bring a toothbrush, mouthwash, hand sanitizer because I was shaking a lot of hands, washcloth, soap, hairbrush. I was there behind the counter.
There you are.
Didn't have
start. So after this 2014, now a lot of people approached you over the years. People wanted to be your partners.
Yeah.
You only have one partner, and that's your wife. And a lot of people wanted to.
And that's why I don't want any more partners. Well, she's a pain.
I guess I opened that one up, Sharon. Sorry. But your theory was growth, quality, service.
Quality, service, attitude, and cleanliness. Quality. First of all, the food's got to taste good. You know, I mean, people aren't gonna. I don't care how cute of a building you got. You know, if you notice, all of our buildings are different themes. That's things that I enjoy doing. The one in Elmhurst is the 50s theme. The jukebox that's on there, I got that idea one day, years ago, in my gambling days. I was driving down Las Vegas Boulevard and I saw a building with a jukebox in front of it. It wasn't as extensive as this, as beautiful as this jukebox is. And I called Olympic Signs, who designed I said, I want a jukebox. And he tells the story about him and I working on that jukebox. I said, what I want it to look like. I want the lit to light up and all that. And in that store, it's a 50 store. And when you walk in that store, to show you how much of a personal touch we had in it, to the right, as soon as you walk in, you'll see Sharon's and mine high school picture.
That's great. So behind you on the screens are some of the stores you had when you entered into the sale in 2014. So you had so many people approaching you, wanting to talk to you. You finally made the decision that you're going to sell the company. What drove you to the decision? What was your thinking behind that?
Well, first of all, I mean, it was a couple of things, Lee. First of all, the timing was right. As far as there was more M&A, mergers and acquisitions in 2014 than any other time in restaurant history. I think the money was pretty free. Everyone to this day is still gobbling up other companies. This one's merging with this one, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can read the paper, it's happening all the time. So there's a lot of money available. We were, I know that we were the most successful in our field. I was debt free, I didn't owe a dime. We didn't owe 10 cents on anything. And I owned the majority of the property. It was paid for. And we didn't owe anything. And so the bottom line was pretty good. I had a well-greased, well-oiled machine. I had some of the finest people that had been with me a long time. We had great customer following. Our customers loved us. And I knew that the brand, because I was already in 4 states, I knew I could go in other states. I thought, I was getting older, I'm 76 years old now, you know what I mean? I got bum legs, bum hip, I wanted to enjoy life. And I thought, if I get the right people, this name could be carried on if they follow the culture. if they do it the right way and keep that moat in place.
And I know that's important to you. Our discussions have been
Darn
around
right.
that. The quality of service, the quality of the product, the CUSAC concept
Quality
is
service
extremely
attitude.
important. So you found that in Berkshire Partners.
Well, we interviewed, when the word got out that I wanted to sell the company, we had 24 private equity companies that bid on our company. And they flew in from their jets. Sometimes they'd have 2 meetings a day. And a lot of them had restaurants in their folders, portfolio, or whatever you want to call it. I did not want to sell to somebody that had a lot of restaurants. One of them was Jimmy John, who was a friend of mine. I was on his boat 2 weeks ago. My wife and I had dinner with a bunch of people on his boat at the boat show. Another one was the fellow that started Potbelly, Brian, and nice guys. But I felt that they would take my brand, and because they want to expand it, they would do it the way they're used to expanding. And it's such a unique concept. It's such a unique brand. I didn't want anybody that was used to expanding restaurants that way because it wouldn't work with Portillo's.
There's only been 2 CEOs of Portillo's today. You're the first. The second is a gentleman by the name of Keith Kinsey. And I was impressed with one of the things that appeared in the paper in an interview. He said, "What's your major goal about Portillo's?" Answer, not ruining it. Now what that tells me is it's along the lines that you said and how you follow that. But you're still involved today.
I am.
You didn't sell and walk away. You still are.
Well, they got me on. They're paying me a lot of money to consult, but I wish I was more involved in decisions. They're a very large, multi-billion-dollar company, and they like to make decisions with committee. I was used to making decisions by myself,
But their growth, what do they intend, about 15% a year?
10 or 15%, but it's going to be difficult. The most difficult part of their idea, of their agenda, is going to be training and site selection, because Portillo's needs a lot of land. It's not like a McDonald's or Taco Bell or whatever. You need, sometimes we'll have 60 or 70 employees in a parking lot, and then you need at least 100 or so for the customers. So you need a lot of land. And then you have to have exposure. There's certain ingredients that I like when I pick a location out. There's certain ingredients that I like to have, like look at Willowbrook, look at Elmhurst, look at some of the ones locally. They're all pretty much on a hard corner, easy access, ingress, egress. They're close to the road. It's like when you drive by, it's almost like the Portillo's are going to jump. You're almost going to run into it. Those sites are not that readily available. They're very difficult to get. However, you don't need a lot of units. You don't need 1,000 units. Jim Catalupo, the ex-CEO of McDonald's, was a customer of mine. He used to live in Oak Brook, not too far from me. He died. And he says, "Dick, if you could ever simplify this concept that you've got, you could open up in every state and make a lot of money." I said, "I'm making a lot of money now, Jim, and I'm not in a lot of states." I don't want to simplify it. I simplify it, then it's easier to people to cross the moat. I want to keep it complicated. And how you make that work is by training. Training. I've seen it done in the Marines. I saw the Marine Corps take a bunch of misfits. Not all of us were misfits. Not all of them. No, there's a lot of great men in the Marine Corps, don't get me wrong. But from all different walks of life, from all different ethnic backgrounds, from all different states, and work as one through training.
An important thing that I found very, very interesting was the average volume and gross that a McDonald's store does compared to what a typical Portillo store does. Give me an example of what an average McDonald's franchise store does.
Domestically, the average McDonald's does about $2.4 million, but 28 to 30% of that is breakfast. So if you took that 28 to 30% away from that, they're under $2 million, which is, I don't have a store that does $2 million.
Now, give me an example of the average Portillo's.
Well, the newer ones are doing more money. The older ones, like Villa Park, Addison, the ones I started with, Villa Park and Addison are probably my two lowest volume stores. But when you're looking at the average of the new ones now, I know Keith Kinsey had said that they average $7 million. He's wrong. The largest volume one we have is on Clark in Ontario, which will hit pretty doggone close to $17 million.
$17 million a year.
Yeah.
It's an incredible testimony to your organization.
And Oaklawn will do about 13 million, and Downers Grove will do 12 or 13 million. So we're doing a lot more. We don't have breakfast.
So you took this hot dog stand. You don't do breakfast. Hot dog for breakfast. You took the hot dog stand. You developed it into this business. The highest volume may be doing 17 million a year. You sell the company for the largest amount that any restaurant of its size.
That size.
Has been sold in the history of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
What a great story.
It is. It really is.
Now, I want to know a little bit about you today. You know, you tell us, and it's obvious, the discipline, focus, and that you credit a lot to the Marines and to your own vision and innovations.
I had another advantage, too, Lee. I had a wife that didn't complain. Because I would come home, I was always thinking about business. I didn't have any balance in my life until fairly recently. It was business, business, business. And when I started gaining more confidence in myself, and the vision I had was, I can do something with this. And my creative juices just went bananas. I mean, look at how unique. I don't know how many people in this audience today have been to, how many Portillos they've been to. But all of them, for the most part, are pretty unique. They're different. You know, most people would cookie stamp them out. I mean, you go to McDougal's in Dubuque, Iowa, or one in Oak Brook, and they're pretty much the same. You have no interest. You know what I mean? What we do at Portillo's is we create energy. There's energy in Portillo's. When you walk into a Portillo's, you see different colors. You see the fans moving. You see lights in the ceiling, and right below those, the lights are, and it's creating all this energy. Right? And this excitement, and they're all different. There's a lot of color in there. It's not just stainless steel in that. And then when the customer places their order, a unique chain reaction is created. Think about it. Place the order, a unique chain reaction is created. People like that movement. They like that, to see that going on. And I got that idea from watching a History Channel many, many, many years ago. Henry Ford designed the assembly line. Right? And I thought, hey, that's a good idea. I'll do the same thing with Portillo's, because it wasn't always like it is now with that assembly line. It was in and out, and I saw that on TV, and that's, again, where the creative juices started.
Today, Dick Portillo, the man, you honored your heritage and your relationship with the Marines. Up on the screen, we have a picture.
Oh, that's Colonel Browse.
Yeah, tell us about retired Colonel Barney Browse, who was your first lieutenant that invited you to dinner at Thanksgiving 1967.
Yeah, that's him. That's him, and I want to talk a little bit about the fellow next to him, too.
Sure.
His name is William Faulkner. His son is a very good friend of mine, just a retired police commander in Phoenix, Arizona. Bill just died Christmas Day and is buried in Arlington Cemetery. And I went to his funeral. He had a big Marine funeral. This is on the island of Villa La Vella in the Solomon Islands, which is off of Guadalcanal. Bill is in the book Flags of Our Fathers, which was a bestseller for a while. And he is mentioned 4 times in that book with a very famous Marine by the name of Ira Hayes. Ira Hayes was the Pima Indian that helped raise the flag in Iwo Jima. Those two are bunkmates. And he's mentioned 4 times. He told many stories about it. And that's Barney Browse to the left, to his right. And I took Barney. What I did, let's go back to, my whole family knew the story about the Thanksgiving in 1957 and the lonely 17-year-old Marine that I was. he was so kind to me and gave me a lot of energy and ideas on how to treat people. So over half a century later, I had the office staff track him down. I wonder whatever happened to him. I wonder if he's still alive. I know he went to Nam a couple times. So we tracked him down. He's retired in California. And I wrote him a letter saying that years ago he was very kind to me, and I'd like to reciprocate by taking him to an all-expense first-class trip to the Solomon Islands and World War II battlefields and the Marines. And I did. So I took him 2 or 3 trips there. Took him to Peleliu, took him to Solomon Islands twice, took him to Iwo Jima. And we're still buddies.
Little act of kindness paid back.
Yes, it did.
Some years later. But your activity, you're kind of a World War II buff. I mean, you really studied.
I read a lot, and and I get focused on something, whether it's the Romans or the Egyptians. And for the last 7 or 8 years, after knowing Bill and talking to a real hero, because he was in some pretty ferocious battles in the Pacific, and he got wounded on Iwo Jima on the 13th day. And so I started reading everything I could on battles in the Pacific and the Marine Corps, because it was a different, any war is terrible. And but in the Marine Corps, in the Pacific, the climate was terrible. You know, I've been to most of those islands. And last one was, you saw me going through the mud, that was Bougainville. And it's a god-awful place to have. I mean, there's spiders this big, saltwater crocodiles, snakes, bugs, everything. The humidity is high, it rains every day. And they had a ferocious enemy, and most of the people had dysentery, Marines had dysentery and malaria. My hat's off to those guys, boy. And so I got so interested in that, and then the Japanese culture, what made them so disciplined and all that. So for the last 7 or 8 years, that's what I've been reading on the Japanese culture and the war in the Pacific.
And you really have participated in that, and of course, you are active in the Wounded Warriors.
Yeah.
And you have
We fed them a few times at Camp Pendleton, and it was very rewarding for me because we have 2 places out in California. And so we fed hundreds of them, and to see all those young heroes and their families and what they gave up for this country. Some of them with no limbs, and young in their 20s, late teens or 20s and all that. I felt honored that I had that I was blessed with the ability to give them some happiness, and we fed them, and I fed them 2 or 3 times, and I think the only thing I wanted was to be able to go to one of my old barracks, and I did. I went back to my old barracks, and one of my old barracks, and it's torn down now. But I was fortunate to go there with my son Michael, and I took a picture. There's a picture of me with another Marine with the helmet on after a march, and the post. And I took a picture last year, so right by that same spot. So that's kind of nice. And business enabled me to do things that most people, you know.
Some of the other charities that you're involved in, diabetes, because your wife has struggled with that for years?
The diabetes program, I'm very much involved in that, because the people that I'm dealing with and Sharon's dealing with in the diabetes program are this close to finding a cure in diabetes. 1 out of 11 people in the United States of America has diabetes. There's a Dr. Jose Overholzer who's in charge of that diabetes project that is he's going to find a cure for it very, very soon. I'm happy and proud to be involved in helping him, and because it's going to help millions of people. Wounded Warrior Battalion, diabetes, Home for Abused Women and Children.
Segment organization. You actually donated a kitchen called the Portillo Kitchen at the Segwit Home Office in Berwyn. So I know that they wanted to make sure I said thank you to you for that. But
you got to give back sometime. God was good to me, and there's you know, it's nothing wrong. These are great. I mean, diabetes, Wounded Warriors, Segment, a home for abused women and children.
So as some of the young people in the audience are close to just starting their careers, and there's many of our students from Elmhurst College here today that are in the economics department, finance department, business management, and others. What kind of advice would you give them as you talk to them about looking to the future in their chosen field?
I would say follow your passion. You know, I mean, people are afraid of failure. You know, but there's a lot of successful people that have failed at things. They just didn't give up. I would say follow your passion. And my thought, you know, I'm not a big tech person or anything like that, because this is my cell phone.
A flip phone.
Flip phone. Yeah.
You know, have you ever heard of an iPhone?
I got an iPaddy.
You got an iPad?
Yeah.
Patty Sullivan is here today. She's your executive assistant, administrative.
No, I do have an iPhone too. I got an iPad. I have an iPhone. I use it for.
I have an iPeggy.
I use it for alarm, directions, and what else? Weather.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, I've come a long way with this little phone here. You know. I mean,
so the students today should go back and get a flip phone. Okay.
Either that or an iPaddy.
So, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Floating around in a bigger boat in the Bahamas.
You're well deserved.
Yeah, well, you know.
But the thing I find also fascinating is the movement today, how you're still involved with some of the consulting on the business, but you're in real estate investments, you also are in developing some properties, and you're still extremely active. You actually have an office that you call your real estate office.
Oh yeah, well, I have two offices. One's in Portillo's, and the other one is in my real estate office in Oak Brook Terrace. And I'm involved in quite a few apartments all over the country. I own 3 shopping plazas myself, and I'm involved in 2 other ones. And I'm just getting involved, hopefully in February, with 48 different properties in 18 different states. Just all different types of businesses. I'll own all the land there too. So yeah, I'm pretty busy.
You are busy. You will be busy.
Well, you know, I'm a type A personality. You know, type A personalities, they don't want to sit around and, you know, watching Kardashians or anything like that. You know?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have received some information about Dick Portillo, the man, Dick Portillo, the business person, the entrepreneur, the investor, and yes, the gentleman who believes strongly in a quality service for a quality product. I'm going to open it up now. I think, where do we have a microphone? Is the microphone coming? Is this a... Tara, are you in charge? Microphone? I can't see. Bev, is this? Okay, here's a microphone right here. Anybody have a question? Raise your hand and he'll come to you. Or I guess you come to him. Whatever you have to do.
Semper Fi. Could you go into a little bit more about, you know, he says your confidence grew, and as they say as an entrepreneur, you step off the airplane and never know where you're going to land. Can you give a little more insight to some of the emotional issues that you overcame while developing Portillo's?
Well, because of the slight learning disability that I had in grammar school and high school, when somebody has a learning disability, a lot of times they don't have a lot of confidence in themselves. As I went into the business and it started growing, and the only reason it grew is because of my passion and wanting to please the customer, business grew. As business grew, my confidence grew, and it got to the point where I trusted my instincts. And there's one thing about somebody that has some of those learning disabilities, is that their instincts are different than most people's instincts. A lot of people don't know that. And their vision is different. They see the whole big picture and not all the little things that might interfere with that. But when you gain confidence in yourself, I felt like a roller coaster, because every time I would open a restaurant, it was a success with hardly any advertising, if any. And then it was just, my emotions just went bananas, and that's all I could think about was building, but I didn't want any partners. I wanted to own the land, and I wanted to do it my way, and that's why I didn't franchise either, because I had enough confidence in myself now that I knew that I didn't have to franchise. I mean, I was making enough money. I could go to the bank at this point and borrow it. And my accountant's in the audience now too, and she'll verify that there was times when the bankers would call her and say, "Doesn't he need any money yet?" Right, Karen?
Other questions? If you have some questions, just line up here, right here, so we can hear as many as...
Kind of not a question, but a testament. You go to that hamburger chain, that Wendy's place, and you order a hamburger with ketchup only, and you get home and it's a wrong order. You go to Portillo's, and you can order for 8 people. You get home, rip those bags open, and there's not a mistake in there. And I don't know how they do that, being as crowded and as many people there are in there at one time. It's amazing.
Well, thank you, but we do make a lot of mistakes on that, because we had 20-something million transactions last year. And if you get a very small percentage of those transactions are mistakes, that's a lot. Thank you, but we do make mistakes, but that's where the training comes in too. Because our menu is so large. There's, like I mentioned, there's 30 items on a Portillo side, 57 items on a Barnelli side, and many variables on those. And there's 256 different ways to make a hot dog. And hot dogs are only 12% of our business. So we have a lot of, and we sell 40,000 pounds a week. So we do make mistakes, but those mistakes are addressed immediately, because we have, by the way, if you do have any complaints for Portillo's, please call them and let them know what time, what happened, all that, because I get all the complaints too. And if there's a pattern developing, that's what I look for. If it's a service is slow in Downers Grove or Elmhurst or whatever, we can identify, is it there in the day, is it at night, is it on weekends, is it drive-through, in the house, what is it? We look and see where that pattern is, and then we send the supervisors at that and try to fix it right away. But I appreciate that, but we do make mistakes, but I'm glad it's not that many. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Pat Sweeney here. I go all the way back to Addison in 74, 75. I don't know when that location was open, but now I go to Ontario quite a bit with my family once a week, and the beef is the same. And are those beefs all made in a centralized location, or are they made on location? Because that's really interesting.
The beef itself is cooked in 2 different commissaries, which I own. There's over 100,000 square feet of commissaries. One's in Aurora and one's in Addison. So, and very few people are involved in the cooking process. Then it gets shipped to the various stores, but the beef is made, and the sandwiches are made in those stores. And that's a very different, that's an interesting question, because the beef sandwich is not like a hamburger. You get a hamburger, you get 1 patty, 2 pieces of bun, all that. But the beef sandwich is not, we don't weigh it out on a scale, and it's made a certain way, and you want to put a certain amount on that. You can't put too much, and you can't put too little. Even if you put too much on it, the mixture of the beef and the bread doesn't work. It has to be a certain amount. So that's where our difficulty comes in too. Sometimes we have complaints that there was not enough beef on a sandwich, and when they made it wrong. I'll just give you a little idea. Picture, this is, people hold the beef sandwich this way, and they'll pack it in like that. They're supposed to hold it L shape, get it from top to bottom, left to right, squeeze it so it's just puffing out there, and we'll put the right amount of beef on there, and it'll look right. That's where the training comes in.
As a follow-up, I just want to say those 2 peppers only on the sandwich, when you order peppers in Ontario, you need more. Thank you.
Next question. Are you talking sweet peppers or hot peppers? Oh, sweet pepper. Well, it depends how large. It depends how large they are. There's little. Okay.
So I'm a logistics guy, Mr. Portillo, and one thing that I never see when I go to any one of your locations is trucks. So I wanted to know if you could maybe expand on your inbound and outbound logistics side of your organization a little bit.
I didn't hear that.
The trucks, the inbound and outbound of your delivery system, and he doesn't see many trucks there at your locations. How do you handle that with all? Am I saying that right?
You mean customers?
Yes, that is correct.
No,
and I notice you have a lot of volume.
Trucks delivering?
Yes, and you have a lot of volume at all of your locations.
We insist that they deliver it at a certain time.
Okay, and you have a lot of volume at all of your locations. But whenever you go to a Portillo's, you never hear one of your employees say that you're out of something. So how do you manage all of that inventory?
Well, it's pretty good. We have a pretty good system, and we know, by history. What did you do last week? What was the weather like? We don't vary that much, and there's always a padding, a 10 or 15% padding on what you did the week before. Now, also, not running out of anything. Fortunately, we have units out here that are close enough to each other that if we do run out, because there's occasions when you run out because unexpected 3 or 4 bus loads come in with a couple hundred people that you weren't expecting. We have stores where the manager will call up and the stores work together on that.
So one last question. Do you guys own your own fleet of trucks or do you outsource that?
We have our own trucks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
So my family enjoys all of the food items at Portillo's, and we have never had anything bad. So every time, like even the chicken noodle soup is awesome.
I like it myself. I had some the other day.
So the question that my son and I have, because we enjoyed visiting your Downers Grove store, is how you got that car up in the air.
We had a big lift. It came over, and first we built the structure for it. The steel structure that it says in it. Then we came in with like a very large forklift, and lifted it up that way and set it in there. Those cars actually work, by the way.
All right, next question.
Hi, I noticed that there are no nutritional values for your food. So do you plan on in the future including that? Why or why not, I guess?
Well, yes, we will. The law is going to change. I think, what is it, January, Michael? Yeah, in January. January, you have to put it on there.
Okay.
But it's very difficult, too, because if you get a Polish sausage or a hot dog, there's 256 different ways to make a hot dog. Each one of those ingredients has a different amount of calories and fat grams in it, so there has to be a comfort zone. You can't hit it exact. You know what I mean? Like if you get a milkshake and it's a 16-ounce milkshake, you can easily determine the fat grams and the nutritional value on that. But when you're making sandwiches with so many variables, it's really difficult. But yes, we will. There will be a comfort zone. You'll see it after January 1.
Okay. Thank you. Next question.
But some of the stuff, Gina's chocolate cake, that famous chocolate cake that we all love at Portillo. Well, there's Gina. Stand up. I want to stand up there.
This is Gina's chocolate cake.
It's Gina's chocolate cake. Yeah, Gina.
Did you sell the chocolate cake when you sold the business?
I had to, yeah. But Gina used to bring it over to the house for all Thanksgiving and all the family events, and I said, "Boy, I bet you they'd like that," and it went over quite well.
Next question.
Hello, I'm Charles Mascarian. Gina, I love your chocolate cake too. So does my family. My question, sir, is all of your growth. How do you have points that you can advise on how to hire managers? When do you know that someone's ready for more challenges, or when it's time to take?
That's up to the supervisors. They have reviews, and then we watch their leadership. We watch their passion. Do they have a passion? Do they want to carry on the culture? You can pretty tell somebody that, do they want to do something that's over and above what the norm is? And we promote so much from within. It's very difficult to promote from within right now and we are still doing it, because of the amount of expansion, and we're cannibalizing the ranks now, so we have to hire some outside help. But yeah, we do promote from within.
And how many levels at the store level do you have? You have let's say the frontline workers, and then you'd have a manager, and then a supervisor.
A supervisor. We'll start with the supervisor. He or she has 4 or 5 units, depending on the volume. And then there's a unit manager.
Okay.
Then there's an AGM. Then there's night managers and crew chiefs.
Okay,
So
thank you. We only have time for a few more questions, so we're going to move. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I actually have 2 really quick questions. One is you mentioned that your first couple of years you encountered failure. What are those failures and what did you learn from them?
I'll tell you one quick failure, and I'm not proud of it, but I didn't have any running water. And I'm going to try to make this as brief as I can. I didn't have any running water, and I used what they call premix in that trailer. And I was just exchanging money with the customer. And I had soda that was already made, and I wasn't making any money on it, so I needed running water. A friend of mine that I was in the Marine Corps with was a pipe fitter. And I says, John, if I put a tank up in the attic and filled it up with water with hose, and could you hook up the pipes down to a carbonator so I could have running water with syrup, I could make a lot more money. Oh yeah, so he did that. So we had a 40-gallon tank up on top, and filled it up with water, and I was all excited because now I'm making money on the drink. And then a customer brought back a drink, and he says, this Coke doesn't taste right. It really does. It tastes funny. And I looked at it, and God, it didn't even look like Coke. It looked like a Green River. And so I closed it and went up there. I never thought about how to clean out that tank.
No. Good customer input.
That's a failure.
All right.
And the last question is, Peter Thiel's some Silicon Valley billionaire, but he wrote in his book that when starting a business, you shouldn't really focus on competition. So I was wondering, did you focus on beating your competition, or did you really focus on the growth of your business?
No, I focused on doing something different, and I'm going to read this for you. Patty gave this to me. It's on my wall. All it takes, along with just a little luck, is total dedication to the basics of business year after year, a real desire to please customers with some kind of individual marketing niche, and a free spirit that distinguishes true independence from chains and actually gives the independents an advantage. That was my philosophy. I created something, that moat I was talking about. I didn't worry about the competition. I don't worry about that. I just do the best I can and I know what they sell, I know what their operations are like, but I know that I wanted to be different than them. And this pretty much says it all. And now the competition's afraid of me. Multi-billion-dollar companies that spend hundreds of $millions a year on advertisements don't like that Portillo's will be next to them.
Thank you. Okay, next question. We're going to just answer the next 3 questions quickly because we're kind of short on time.
Okay. Hi, I came all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, just to listen to you speak tonight. And so...
Time to go to the Elmhurst Store.
I was actually there at your opening on Scotts, and I took a picture with you, which I hope you can maybe sign for me before I leave.
Absolutely. Sure.
And
bring it up.
Bring it up. Come on.
What's that?
Bring it up. I'll sign it.
Oh, I have it way over there.
Okay. When we're done, I'll just stand up. I'll come over and sign it.
Okay, thank you.
Glad to do it.
I read everything I could find about you online and everything. What amazes me the most is the way you did your business. You built it within probably a 30, 50-mile radius in this part of the country. You pretty much paid for everything cash, 0 debt, like you mentioned, which is super rare nowadays for almost anybody to do out there in any sort of business. And my question really is, like, what was your reasoning behind owning your real estate right from the beginning? Like, why did you decide to go that way?
Well, I didn't own it at the beginning. It took a while to do that. I didn't own the real estate till sixth store, the sixth store. 6, and then it went, but the reason is, I mean, it just makes sense. You don't pay a mortgage, you got the cash. What am I going to do, buy a new car, a new pair of shoes? It helped with the bottom line. You know, I mean, you look at any business, they have overhead. I didn't have any overhead because I owned the business. I owned the building, I owned the equipment, I was debt-free. And that helped with the bottom line. Our profit structure per dollar is what raised the eyebrows of all the private equity groups that came in and flew in. They says, this can't be right. They even, the serious ones, the last 4 or 5, the serious ones, brought in their own accountants because they didn't believe our accountant, right, Karen? Okay. Because owning the property has tremendous advantage, tremendous advantage.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then my final one, what marathons have you run?
I ran 10 marathons in 8 years. I ran several Chicago, several Honolulu, Long Beach, Los Angeles, but most of them are Chicago and Honolulu, and that's why I have 2 knee replacements.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Señor Portillo, my name is Daniel Contreras, coming from Tucson, Arizona. I have 4 restaurants in Tucson, 3 in Tucson, 1 in Phoenix, but I also have a lot of respect for you. There's a reason we and him come all the way here. We have a lot of respect for you and the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the last question of the evening.
We love all the Portillo restaurants. We particularly love the ones that have Barnelli's with them. You had mentioned, is Barnelli's a separate restaurant, and how did they get hooked up with you?
No, I started at Barnelli's.
How did you name it Barnelli's?
It was what we used to, it was another one before that. It was called Barney's, and Barney's was roasted chicken and pork and beef and corn on the cob and fresh cut fries. And I thought it was a good idea, but it didn't go good. So I mean, we lost money on it, and another failure. And so I decided to turn that particular one into a Italian quick serve. And Barnelli's was Barnelli's. It was just a name that I picked. It was an Italian.
Their pasta is the best.
Thank you. You know, it is the best, and I appreciate it. And it's a great concept. When you look at some of the pastas and the price of those pastas versus you go to a sit-down restaurant, it's a lot cheaper, and there's no tipping. But I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
I wish more of the Portillos had the Barnelli's with them, but I know it's a space.
It's a very difficult concept because of you have, like I mentioned earlier, you have 57 items on Barnelli's side, 30 on Portillo's side. Somebody comes up to the drive-thru, they want some Portillo's and some Barnelli's, and it messes up the service times, and it's very, very difficult. And I don't think you'll see any more of those, even though it's a great concept, because some of those items take longer, and the customers are waiting too long. And I was getting letters saying it's not a Portillo's brand if the service is slow. Well, the reason the service is slow is because 2 restaurants under one roof, and they have to get the food at the window with 80-something different items on that menu, prepared with different ways, was very difficult in giving the service that we wanted to give at Portillo's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we've now concluded the conversation with Dick Portillo from hot dogs to Top Dog. I think it's been an informative evening. I want to thank Dick and thank Sharon and the family, the Portillo family.
And I'm a senior here majoring in business. So on behalf of Elmhurst College, I would like to thank Mr. Portillo for being here tonight. And we would like to present you with this gift as our thanks for sharing your life story and being a great example of someone reaching their potential. And thank you all for coming out to this Quest lecture, and have a safe drive home.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you'd like, you can unwrap it, whatever you'd like.
It says Elmhurst College.
Dick Portillo. I'll say it. Okay?
You say it. Okay, Dick.
Elmhurst College, Dick Portillo, Top Dog.
Thank you all. Have a good evening. Thank you, buddy.